it's time we start. So, okay, let's have a look here. So for today, the learning objectives are mainly, I think if you can infer from the information here, we are going to touch a little bit on, because it's talking about relating keywords to personal experiences, right? And then eventually we are supposed to be able to develop a relatable storyline. So in this case, of course, actually all these clues are leading towards this genre, which is your personal recount. I'm sure, okay, maybe because now it's only March, so some schools might not have covered writing yet, because some schools might have started on comprehension yet. But if they have had started on writing, then the genre that they are going to touch on will probably be personal recount. Okay, so maybe to some of you, it's something familiar, right? So today's teaching objective is really to cover how to tackle personal recount questions and how to develop into a relatable story. Yeah. So as usual, okay, we're going to cover composition for the first part. Then subsequently, we are going to touch a little bit on current affairs, right? For some of you who are new, I think this class mainly we have a lot of students who were with me last week, but for the sake of those who just came to join us, right? Like Yichen and Chloe. Usually for ATA tuition, we cover a lot on current affairs as well. So that's part of our niche because we believe that current affairs will help you in many components in your O-level exams eventually, right? For example, your spoken interaction, the non-narrative text in your comprehension, as well as visual text and also writing as well in terms of expository writing. Okay, so we always make the effort to cover at least some current affairs and maybe have a discussion about it, generate some ideas, brainstorm together. Okay, so that's the aim of our current affairs segment, yeah? So let us start with composition first. So obviously there will definitely be a word count limit. So in this case, you are expected to write between 350 to 500 words. I think in primary school, definitely you are expected to write lesser. This is a good gauge because like I said, the last lesson, we do not want to write below that because when you write below that, it really just suggests to the marker that you do not have enough content. And a lot of times, if you do not have sufficient content, they are not able to score you very well for content portion. Okay, and generally, if you don't do well for content, then that you might also affect your language portion for your continuous writing marks, because when you don't have enough content, then they don't have much to mark you on for language as well. So they will not award you very high marks for content as well as language. Okay, and eventually, of course, you won't be scoring a very good score for your writing. Yeah. Now, why is there an upper limit? There's an upper limit because if you were to write more than 500 words, okay, one thing is you might struggle with time management. Okay, if you were to write too much, it also suggests that there might be a lot of repetition and also redundant words. Okay, so in this case, I think it's better if you were to just write within the word limit. Hi, Vidyuth. Vidyuth, were you here last week? You were not here last week. Vidyuth, which secondary school are you from?
ACS Independent.
Nice. Okay, ACS. Great. Okay, thanks for sharing. Okay, so in this case, we actually are touching on personal recount now. Okay, it's a genre that I think will be covered in Sec 1, if not Sec 2. Okay, usually when you go into Sec 2 and Sec 3, they'll probably cover things like expository and argumentative. But personal recount will be one of the first, yeah, that they'll cover in your secondary school years. So the question here is the family crisis, right? So in this case, I think what we have to do is definitely to unpack the question first. You are given a topic, you're given a question. Let us analyze it by identifying the keywords. Okay, so you should be able to identify keywords such as family and crisis, right? I think this is a very short topic. There aren't that many words, only 3 words. So the keywords that we should be unpacking will be family and crisis. So what do we mean by a family? What does family mean to you? Anyone can answer that. What does family mean to you? Yi-Chen, what does family mean to you?
Like, I think someone who people who care for you.
Okay, for people who care for you. So that's what family means to you. Yes, okay, fine. This one is people. Anyone has a different definition? Chloe, what's the definition of family?
People who you live with.
Okay, people whom you live with. Okay, and what do you think is the definition of family in on Cambridge Dictionary? Okay, I think in general you all give quite good definition. There's no exactly actually there's no need to state the definition in your in your compo, but I think it'll be good to first understand what it means first, right? So basically, it's really a group of a group of one or more parents. I guess for Cambridge Dictionary, it's really trying to accommodate and also trying to make sure that it's not really generalizing it. They are basically trying to encompass every possible family units. So I think most of you can understand that in this era, there are quite a handful of families who are which are made up of one parent, like single parent family. So does that mean that those are not families? They are still considered families, right? Okay, so the definition of family on Cambridge Dictionary is a group of one or more parents and children living together as one unit. I would think this definition is still very traditional, right? Okay, because does it mean that if you're not married and you're staying with your parents, then it's not a family? Actually, technically it is because, I mean, your parents are still parents and you are the child, just taking a different role in what comprises of a family. Okay, now next one is the word crisis, right? So the word crisis basically suggests a time of intense difficulty. So obviously, to put it together, so once you understand the topic very well, then you can start generating ideas, right? But firstly, I think you do need to unpack the question first. It's not just a financial crisis, it's not a personal crisis, it is a family crisis. So it has got to be something to do with the members of the family. Okay, and then of course it's a crisis, then you do not want to write out of topic. It must be something that is of intense difficulty as well. Okay, so start with defining the keywords in the question first. So that's the first step that you should be taking. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so this one is done. So what is a personal recount? Maybe just a show of hands. How many of you have covered personal recount in school? Youth, yes. Yi-Chen, no. Let me see. Who else? Badrun, do you cover personal recount in school? I think you're muted. Are you? Can't hear you.
A bit.
A little bit. Okay, great. Sheena? Sheena, have you covered personal account in school?
Yeah.
Unlock?
A bit.
A bit. Risandi?
We did cover
Yeah.
only a little bit.
Only a little bit, yeah. I believe they will definitely cover in Sec 1. Okay. Okay, yeah. I think I have a good gauge of who has covered and who have not. Don't worry if you have not covered or if you have covered. After all, I think English is really not just about like what topics to cover, right? It's a lot about the different answering techniques, the skills, reading skills, listening skills, and then also, of course, trying to hone your speaking skills as well, right? How do you speak? How do you converse with people? Yeah. So in this case, what is considered a personal recount? Basically, a personal recount, it relates to an event or an experience that is just really meaningful and memorable to you. It contains the elements of a story, like, it must have a scene, it must have a character. The rising, I'm sure you have learned this in primary school before, right? It's like a narrative, it's just a personal narrative. So there will be introduction, rising action, climax, falling action, resolution, right? So this one is intro, this one is conclusion, this is rising action, this is the climax, this is the falling action. Yeah. So I'm sure you're familiar with this because probably your primary school teachers have told you this before. Okay. But the thing is, personal recount, some things to take note of. There are two aspects definitely when we talk about content. Can we talk about language? Okay. Now, in terms of content, we also talk about how we organize. So our organization of the ideas. Right? So how do we organize our ideas? So generally, when it comes to organization, we are always talking about this fish bone thing, right? So you have your intro, then your body. So since we have the graph above, our body should comprise of the rising, the climax, and the falling. Then at the back, of course, you have your conclusion. Okay, then in terms of language, we'll discuss a bit more about language later. Let's just get the content right first, the content and the structure right first. Okay, so the content, of course, has to include personal experience because it's a personal recount, right? Certain values that you want to share, certain situations you were in. Okay, so these are the content. And in this case, we also want to maybe include some description about the transformation. Okay, it can be positive or negative, but it's basically how the individual actually grew due to these external events and occurrences. So in this case, what has the writer transformed into because of this? And generally, the transformation is placed in the conclusion because you want to sort of like summarize the story and then just give like maybe some updates on the mood, description of the mood after the event, description of what you have learned, lesson learned, right? So recall what has happened. So it's a recollection of what has happened. It's the details, okay, giving the details of the occurrence of the series of events. Okay, and then also you relate the occurrence of a certain incident. So all these actually falls under content. These are the things that you should be seeing in a piece of personal recount writing. Okay. Now, next one. So this falls under content as well because this one, it's basically this one is how we organize, right? The organization of it. Intro, definitely. You can put your rising action here. Okay.